What's up YouTube, and welcome to my pickups video for the month of October 2021. This is a pretty light month of pickups, as the last couple months have been, just because the market continues to be absolutely insane for retro video games, and I'm really just cutting down on some of the things that I'm truly looking for to hone in on some true holy grail type stuff that I've been saving up for. So you're going to see a mix of things this month that I got. Ultimately no real theme or thing that I was really truly going for, just ultimately some things I found on my hunting. I did do a little travel this month. I went to Austin, Texas at the beginning of the month, and also San Antonio on the same trip. Found a few things out there, but as I've found in prior trips to Texas, that it's really a difficult state to game hunt in. The market seems unusually high in that market, even more so than it typically would be with everything else going on right now. So had to be kind of choosy in what I got, but I did find a few things along the way. So we're going to start off with a complete-in-box original Game Boy game, which is something that, even if it's not exactly a desirable title, I don't see them very often, so I try to pick them up if I get a decent price. And that is Sports Illustrated Championship Football and Baseball. So kind of a weird sports game in that you get two sports in one. I guess you got a little bit of a value proposition there. I don't think it really worked out. This game didn't sell all that well, and I don't think it's really considered to be a classic as far as sports games on the Game Boy. But it really was in pristine shape. It had like a poster and everything with it, so I figured might as well. It was really cheap, so went ahead and grabbed that while I was down in Texas. I did hit a flea market while I was there, and it was really just wiped out for games in general. Very big flea market. I've actually found stuff there on prior trips, but the only thing I did find from a vendor was Wii Sports Resort for a couple bucks at a booth. And actually, I've never owned this. I did a video on my Wii collection within the last couple months. Hopefully some of you guys checked that out. Ultimately, I've got a lot of stuff on the Wii, but ultimately never had Wii Sports Resort, so I figured I'd check it out. If I don't like it, I can always sell this. This game goes for a decent amount, just, you know, for something that's so common as it really is. But I did like Wii Sports Bowling on the original Wii Sports Pack, so hopefully this has a few games that I like. I think there's a bowling mini game included in this too, so maybe that'll catch my attention and I'll get all hooked on the Wii all over again. Who knows? Probably one of the more unusual finds I had for game-wise in Texas was a import shooter for the PS1 that I've passed over online tons of times, mainly just because I didn't want to pay for shipping from Japan, and this game doesn't really have that great of a reputation, but I figured I would check it out, especially finding it in person, and that is called To Tenkaku. This was a very early PS1 release. I think it came out in 94 or maybe early 95, and while the graphics aren't really fantastic by any means, they're just kind of simple 2D, they actually look okay, and you can tell that this game, they really put a lot of energy in the cutscenes. Has an abnormal cutscene quality for a shooter, especially of that era. So maybe that was really what they were kind of testing out to see what that looked like. My understanding is this was developed in partially by Sony's music division. So I guess they were trying to have some crossover between their music division and their new video game at the time division that was creating the PlayStation. So maybe that had something to do with why this game was a little bit experimental and in nature. It comes in kind of this funky double case. It's not even really a double disc case. It's like a case and a half size that some of the Japanese games come with. And it's still just a single disc, but it has kind of a thick manual, so sometimes the games come in these cases like this. They do break incredibly easy, so I was happy to find that this one isn't cracked, because they're very hard to find a replacement, especially in the US. Overall, it's a decent shooter. It's very simplistic as far as the button layout. One thing I didn't really like is it doesn't necessarily have an auto-fire for most of the weapons. So it's kind of old school in that you got to just sit there and jam on the button the whole time you're playing it, which, you know, by this era, that was kind of when that started to die out. So if you're interested, you can get this one for a reasonable price, even online. It's not one of the more expensive shooters on the PS1. I'm guessing it sold pretty well just because it was an early release and, you know, people were probably hungry to get whatever they could at that point for the system. So nice to get another shooter for the PS1 import library that didn't come to the US. A game that I was looking for, I ended up getting this on eBay a couple weeks ago. This was something I've been trying to find in stores for a couple years now, probably, and just have never once come into a complete copy of this. It's a difficult game to find complete for the PS3, and it's Vampire Reign Altered Species. I've seen the original Vampire Reign on the 360 a ton of times, and it turns out this is like a director's cut version of that. It has different artwork. It came out like a year later than that one, but was still a pretty early PS3 release. So I don't think that they necessarily sold that many in the first place, and then what makes this one very difficult to find complete is it actually comes with a manual and a poster. And so typically when I see these, even online, they tend to be missing one piece or the other, so I really held out to get a complete copy of this. I don't anticipate this is going to be very good. The game has pretty poor reviews. I haven't even popped it in yet. but it was kind of like a survival horror or stealth type game, I guess would be a better way to describe it. And it is Japanese developed, so I figured I would at least give it the time of day. But yeah, interesting to find this game on the PS3. I don't really know why this game is so difficult to find. It's not incredibly expensive, but it's just, again, if you really want it to be truly complete with the poster, you might have to do a little bit of digging to find one. So happy to get that, even though I had to buy that one online. That actually is all the games I got this month, but I did get some other game-related stuff I'll show you, mostly for my trip. This was actually a local find. I bought some new hardware this month, and I bought another Slim PS2. I didn't really need this, but I got a great price on this at a thrift store, and I decided that pretty much every room of my house that has a TV in it now has at least a PS2 hooked up to it. So they're pretty versatile. You can play your PS1, PS2 games, and obviously DVDs on it. So just nice to have for convenience, if nothing else. I like the form factor of these Slim systems. I actually already have one in this exact same color, and I was hoping if I found another one I would find at least the black or one of the other, more unique colors like the white system. But oh well, the silver's okay. It came with the original silver controller as well, which was nice. So, it's not as nice as my other system is condition-wise, but for the cheap price I got it for, I'm very happy. And like I said, it doesn't hurt to stock up on some of those PS2s because some of them are getting a little bit iffy as far as their reliability, so good to have a backup if nothing else. I did get one game box on my trip to Texas. This one I thought had really cool artwork on it, and it's a game that I like on the NES, and that is Bump and Jump, which was published here by Vic Tokai, even though it's based on, I think, a Data East arcade game that I've played before. So really like the artwork on this. I thought it was pretty fun, and definitely was happy to add this to the collection. Which now my copy's complete of that, which is cool. The other thing I got on the Texas trip was a bunch of manuals, and there's a chain game store that is found pretty much all over the Texas area, and one thing I like about them, even though their prices aren't really that great as far as their game inventory, their stores do sell used manuals, and they do tend to give pretty good prices on those, so I was able to get quite a few of these from that chain of stores in some of my visits out there while I was running around. So I did get some Game Boy manuals first off. These are kind of uncommon ones. I got Centipede, which is the Accolade version. There is a much more common of this game version of this game that was published by Nintendo, but this Accolade version was very early, and you don't see the cartridge very often either. So I'd like to get the box for it eventually, but I do have the cartridge, and now I at least have the manual to get a little closer to complete. Another kind of uncommon game for the Game Boy that I found the manual for is Kung Fu Master. This was an IRAM release, and it's related to the Kung Fu game that they put out in the arcades, which I think was Spartan X. It's kind of like a version of that for the Game Boy, so nice to have that. I always like early IRAM stuff, and they didn't put out a whole lot on the Game Boy, so I was happy that this got released here, and it kind of has neat artwork. I did find some NES manuals as well. I got the manual for the Power Pad, and I thought this was kind of interesting that it's in like a typical game-size manual. It's not like a full booklet like one of the system manuals. I think this came with like the standalone Power Pad. Maybe it came in the set that came with the Power Pad. I never had that version as a kid. So if you know more details on the, what this was packaged with, that'd be nice. But I do have a Power Pad, so I can certainly put this with it, which is a nice little plus. Also got some game manuals for the NES. I got Fisher-Price I Can Remember. Not exactly a classic there that I'm going to play. Another one that is very difficult to find, I was really happy to get this out on the trip, even though, again, it's a game I won't play, is Bandit Kings of Ancient China. And this is one of the Koei sims that are incredibly text-heavy and tedious, and definitely not my style of game, especially with kind of the primitive nature of the graphics and all that. But Koei released a lot of these games like this on the NES, and this is actually one of the more difficult ones to find, for the cartridge especially. So very nice to get a manual to go with my cartridge. Another one I got is Immortal, and I have a feeling this one was based on like a PC game originally. It's an early Electronic Arts game, and I thought it was neat that the manual is in this vertical orientation. It's kind of interesting, so it like flips up like kind of like a notepad. And then, I don't know if I'll be able to find the page here on the fly, but, oh, there it is. There is biographies of all the game designers for the game, which is something you didn't typically see back in the NES era, so you can check out all the great information about these wonderful people that created this game that probably not a whole lot of people remember today. But at least they put a little effort into the manual. I thought that was kind of cool. Probably my favorite of the games that I got the manual for this month was Starship Hector. It's a very neat Hudson Soft game, and kind of like the artwork on that too. It has a kind of a vintage anime feel to it, so pretty neat, and happy to get that manual in the collection. Another one I got that was a huge upgrade because I bought this game complete way back when, and my copy was an X rental, and the manual was like destroyed. So now you have a nice clean manual for it, is Marvel Superheroes and War of the Gems on Super Nintendo, which is a pretty decent beat-em-up, actually. It's based on the X-Men beat-em-up game that Capcom also made on the Super Nintendo engine. So basically you can play either one. They're about the same gameplay experience, just with some different Marvel characters in them. But this was a pretty late release for the Super Nintendo, so it's kind of difficult to find complete in the box, I would say, especially. And probably some renewed interest in this game now, even more so than when it was released. So that's all the manuals I got. I got one other thing game-related on my Texas trip, and I thought this was such a weird thing that I just had to buy it. It is Nintendo NES related, and it's a book called Pop and Play, Nintendo Game Instructions. And what I gather by this, based on where I've seen some of these printed pages before, is it gives the owner, which would probably be more like a video store owner, would be the person who would have bought this back in period, a series of one-page instructions that they could print out, copy, and then put with rental copies of games. And I've definitely seen some of the pages like this with rental copies of games over the years. They're branded by USA Direct Incorporated on each page, so they made sure they put their copyright on every page. There's some other variations of like single-page instructions from that era, but these were definitely one of the more common ones that you saw. But I had no idea that they actually sold books with these in them. Maybe there's other volumes of it even. This one included Super Mario 3 as a shout-out, so it was probably like 1990 era would be my guess. So maybe there's a version with some of the later releases that'd be kind of interesting to find too. Overall, I guess if you can't find the manual for a game, or you don't want to look it up online, you can just flip to the page and get some quick pick up and play instructions, even for some of the more complicated games. So definitely a weird find. I only paid a couple bucks for it, and I thought certainly an interesting thing to add to my Nintendo collection. So very happy to get this. But that about does it. I'm hoping some of my limited release games that I've pre-ordered months and months and months ago are going to start showing up in the next month, because I feel like I should have some new releases to show, but ultimately didn't get anything this month just because nothing was shipped to me, so we'll see how that goes in the coming month. But thank you for watching. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.